How's it going? Je m'appelle Tony. Here's that hood. So what we're going to do is, we being, I'm going to fix this hole. Look at a hole, hood pin. When they put the hood pins in this car incorrectly, and when they placed them incorrectly, they put them in the wrong place. Should probably be, doesn't matter. I'm going to fix it. So what they done when they did it is, I reckon, this hood didn't come from the car that's going back on, but whatever car that this was on, when they put the hood pins in it, I expect they installed the hood pins on the car where they poked them, and then they grabbed the hood, I would say by looking at the inside of the bracework, they grabbed the hood with the hood pins installed. I grabbed the hood and went bang, 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 and hit the hood pins and dented the inside of it to see where their hole had to go. And then they grabbed a grenade and set it there and blew a hole through the hood for the hood pins. That's what they did. That's how you work on cars. So here, just and I'll show you that it's pretty bitchy. It was this. I got in there with my own homemade PDR tool that I made. I don't know, probably welded this up and bent it, and probably just 25 years ago I bet I did that. But I've got, since this hole was all the way through, I was able to get in from behind and get up underneath that skin, and I don't know if you can see that moving or not, but get in there, a little bit of hammer, undolly hammer off, some smashing. I'll get you in here so you can have a quick look. Okay, mobility engaged. So now, I don't know if you can see that real well. If I get down here, woo! It's pretty level. It's not bad. It's a hell, it was sunk before. It was in there, but we got her up there pretty level. And now you can see the way our hole goes all the way through there. And just nice work, boys. Nice work. If that's the best you can do, then I guess that's the best you can do. But anyways, we're going to give that a fixing. Blink. Now, if this is Hollywood, I don't know what I'd do. I guess maybe I would cut all the spot welds off, and me and 3 other guys would separate the skin, and then I'd cut a great big piece out about 3 feet by 7 feet, and then I would TIG weld a piece back in here, and then I'd put her on the English wheel, and I'd roll her through an English wheel, and I'd pick and file, and I'd roll it, and then at the end we'd polish her all up and send her out for chrome. But this is real. This isn't. There's no production value to be had. So I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you how to do it. So this hole, see how my finger disappears? I ain't got the biggest fingers in the world, but they're not the smallest either. That's probably a 1/2 inch hole or better, give or take. Take or get, happens maybe. So I'm going to, instead of cutting that all out, I'm just going to weld all this stuff up. Now it'll be okay in this instance, just do that. On a frame or something like that, you don't really want to just weld a hole up, because where you MIG weld, and the MIG weld itself will get, it's going to be more brittle and harder than the steel around it. If you want evidence of that, weld up a screw hole and then try to drill through that weld again. Good luck with that. So one of the reasons, the biggest reason, the only reason that I don't want to cut this out and weld a piece of steel into it is that'll be far too much weld in the hood, and it'll pull the hood around. And the reason it'll pull the hood around, cut, take, reprint. The reason it will pull the hood around will be because that's way too much liquid steel that I'm putting around it. Because when you weld, that's what you're doing. You're liquefying steel. You're taking a solid, you're heating it up, melting it, turning it to a liquid. Now, when you turn it to a liquid, the steel expands. So your liquid metal, as well as liquid metal being the wire that you're wheeling in there, that's your liquid metal. It's also turning the edges of the product you're welding, turning the edges of it to liquid as well. So now you've got a little river running there. Now as that river solidifies, it shrinks, because as the metal heats, it expands. When it liquefies, it expands. As it turns back to a solid, it shrinks. So now you've welded it, it's tight, but then as that weld cools, it shrinks it up a little bit and it pulls. It's pulling the hood together. That's where you get the majority of your warpage from. I'm not going to get into the argument about heat. Don't give a shit who says that it's heat that kills it. A lot of heat will warp it, absolutely, but in welding, it is very rarely. I mean, unless you're just Johnny Cowboy with the welder, you shouldn't be getting enough heat in there to do that. So what it is the shrinkage of the metal. Pulls the steel. As it pulls the steel, well, something's got to happen, so the steel it'll either give way in, or it'll give way out, or it'll, whatever, that's where it puts your waves in. And a lot of times from a weld, it'll put a wave in over there, because the weakest point of the steel, that's where it's going to give way. So a quick explanation of how to do this. This is the best way that I've found. There's a lot of different shit out there you can use. You can buy, oh hell, I mean, like there is an entire fallacy, no, industry based on this kind of stuff. You can buy copper backers, like it's a little chunks of copper on a stick that you can stuff in there, and then the copper takes the heat from the weld, but the weld doesn't stick to copper. But you're trying to take the heat from the weld. If that doesn't work, then it doesn't work. You don't take the heat from the weld, and you're going to bitch it up anyways. So you're best off to try to find a technique to not put the heat in the weld in the first place. One way to tell how much heat you put in the weld is by the heat sink that's around the weld. And the way that you tell what the heat sink is that's the little blue and black rings around your weld. The smaller those rings are around your weld, that's how much heat you put in, direct heat you put into it. The smaller you can keep those rings, the less heat you put into it. How do you weld with less heat? Well, the easiest way, like my welder, that you can't see, but it's sitting right chomp, my welder, like one is its lowest setting, and 90% of what I do, I weld on 1. If I get into some heavier interstructure frames, I mean, 2 is usually good enough for that. I've had the thing up to 4, but let me tell you, on 4, it peels the skin off of your face. It's so hot. But so I welded on 1, and generally my wire speed, again on my machine, my setting, I don't have a clicker, I have a dial setting. I like that because you can tune it in, because it actually incrementally, not just one setting, but incrementally speeds and slows the wire down. I generally weld, I'm staring at it, at 2.5 to 2 3/4 for sheet metal work. So now in doing this, I'm going to turn it up to probably about 3.5, 3 3/4, my wire speed. And the reason that I'm doing that is because if your wire speed is slowed down for getting good penetration, that means that you've got to lay a little more wire in there, and it's going to get it a little bit hotter as you're feeding more wire in there more slowly. Does that make sense? A quick snap of wire versus a slow feed. If you feed it in slowly, you're building more heat in there, you're going to get more penetration into the steel. If you turn your wire up and it hits it, zap, 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 you're not pumping as much heat into it. That'll work on this because this isn't a big structural situation we got here. So it doesn't have to have ungodly Superman tensile strength. It only has to have enough tensile strength to hang in there. So what I'll do is, if this doesn't work, you're not going to see this, because I'm not one of those guys that tells you I'm going to do something, this is the way you do it, and then I attempt to do it on film and then it doesn't work and then I show you anyways, because why would I do that? That's stupid. Then you just look at me and go, gosh, Tony, you're not very smart at all, are you? So what I'm going to do here is I'll get set up here and I'll get you in a little bit closer here so you can see. You can watch the weld, you won't be able to see it because the spark's too bright, but the color. I remember in school once for apprenticeship, There was a fella in there and we were watching welding videos. I think it was third year or second year. I don't remember what year it was, but there was welding videos in theory. And there was just one dude in there that kept doing that every time they welded. Tradesmen, they're smart. So, just a sec, I'll get you in here just a sec. Blink. I gotta get way down here now. Can you hear me over the welder? Okay, well. As I said, I've got my wire turned way up. I like the speedy wire. You can see the hole we're gonna weld. If you're gonna do something like this, you can't even see me, can you? If you're gonna do something like this, when you're coming in, you want to come in from the side like this. And you want to keep welding from the side because you want your weld to come in this way, not go straight down. And the reason for that is as you start to get some weld buildup, if you start going straight down, you're just piling your weld up on top. And then when you grind it, it's going to be so thin that I guarantee you it's gonna crack. So if you go in from the side, as sideways as you can in doing this kind of a process, your weld's going to be a little more sideways. So you're going to have a little bit of keister of your weld hanging down the bottom. There's going to be a little butt on there. And so when you grind the top off, you still got some junk in the trunk underneath. And that's what we're looking for. So what we'll do here is I'll show you what's shaking. A little bit of air for some cooling. When I was a young fella, I used to think that sounded like cool. All right, here we go. Remember, don't worry about squinting. So we'll come in from the side and we'll start building some weld. And like I said, I got the wire turned up quite a bit. So we just want to snap the welds in there because you don't want to sink a bunch of heat in. In between my little spots of weld, I try to let it cool before I hit it again. Just as I said, so we're not sinking too much heat in there. Like, I don't know if you can see that, but my rings of heat are really tight around there. I'm not putting much heat in it at all. One of the problems that I'm having with this is somebody's hit this pretty good with a grinder already in the past. So like it's like pie plate thin. So it's not a party. It's a kick in the balls. Kicking the balls with a big foot. There, can you see how that just blew that screw hole right out? That's how thin it is. I'll move on to another area to kind of let that cool for a sec. Did you just hear the hood go bonk? Double screw hole. See, it's not even hot. See what I'm saying? I didn't put that much heat into it. Here, let me shut the gizmo off. Like, that was, how long ago did I weld it? Just now. And you can touch it. See what I'm saying? Uh-oh. I missed a spot. Don't miss a spot. Got it. Now that's what I meant. Now normally, as you could tell by the sound, here, just a sec. Blink. Blink. Jesus, you know, just doing that, that's hard on the guy's back. I've been doing this too long. Like, I spent most of my life in the trade doing collision work. So that's, everybody drives smaller cars, you know what I mean? And fixing them. So when you're working on a Nissan or Toyota or something, that's the way you're working. And it's all day long and it's for 100 years. And now I need some vertebrae and I don't know what else is in your back. I need it all. Holy cow. You can't just buy it. And nobody wants to hear you bitch about it, so just shut your pie hole. So, anyways, so there it is. Kind of hard to, you know what? I'll turn that up a little bit and I'll show you what it looks like. More pausing. Blink. If you want a good look at your weld before you grind it and stuff, just to inspect it or something, give the business one of these. One of this here. That's what I do sometimes. That's what I did just now to show you something. Just a sec. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. So now this, here, I'm going to jiggle you around a bit. It's going to be awesome. Now that's what your weld looks like. Focus. Focus, you son of a bitch. There you are. Doesn't look very good, does it? But in what we did, I mean, that's what it's going to take to do what we needed to do. Now, you don't have to worry about the fact that it looks like a whole pile of worm shit on there, because each one of them little worm turds bit into the worm turd beside it. So your whole chain of turds, they're all connected. So it's okay. Once you grind that smooth, it's going to look just like steel when you're done. But as I said, to keep that heat down, that's what you got to do. Here, you know, and I'll show you. Here, I'm going to jiggle you good for a sec here. Just a minute. Oh, yoink. So when we come back over again and look at our surface, we're still level. See that? It didn't warp it. It didn't pull it down a whole bunch. It was tough to keep it up there. But again, if you do that, well, that's what it takes to do it. That is the alternative to cutting out a whole big chunk of life. Come on, focus, you bastard. Are you going to focus? What's it focused on here? I'm probably fuzzy now. Just a sec. There you go. But anyways, like I said, how long did that take? I mean, that was real time. It's a lot faster than doing that. And I mean, in all honesty, with the holes and everything in this area, this is all bitched up to start with. So we're already 100% better than it was when it started. And now we got no holes in there. Like I said, once I grind that smooth, clean it up, I mean, this whole hood is, you know, it's not a museum piece. You know what I'm saying to you? Yeah, that's how to do that without warping it up. That's a little bit of an explanation on welding. A lot of people, there's a lot of teaching goes on to this stuff, and I've learned over the years that a lot of teaching is based on opinions and theories, and a lot of times they can't prove it. Prove it, you bastard. You're telling me what's going to prove it? Well, that proves it. Same as if you want to practice, if you're doing this kind of shit at home, you are doing this kind of shit, well, take a shitty old panel and cut it up a little bit and weld it together and try a few different ways of welding it. You'll see. If you sink a big fat weld on there with a bunch of heat in it, she's a done deal. But if you do a nice controlled weld in there, I guess that would be one of the benefits of TIG welding. I don't know how to TIG weld. I don't have a TIG welder. I'm not going to learn how to TIG weld. I don't think that TIG welding is the way to go with this shit. It's not necessary. It's heroic, but it's not necessary. You can control your heat and stuff in there, but you can't with a MIG welder too. It's a matter of technique. Controlling your heat, like I just showed, isn't all a matter of heat setting. Sometimes too, if you've got some really thin steel and it's hard to get a weld in there, you can pull your stinger back a little bit. Now that's doing the same thing as it turning your wire up. That's just because if you pull it back a little bit, well, there's not as much charge, because the way a MIG welder works is it puts an electronic charge through the wire. And now that charge in the wire snakes over to the ground. I point over there because my ground is clipped on that side of the hood. So the charge through your wire wants to shoot over to that ground. So the longer your wire is, the happier your wife will. Sorry, the longer your wire is, the further that charge has to go to get to the end of it. So if it's got 1,000,000 volts here, by the time it gets to the end, it's only got 700,000 or whatever. If it's got 2, it's got 3/4 of 1. So it makes it a cooler hit when you're hitting steel. Bit of a ramble. That's kind of the way she goes. But yeah, that's about all I'm going to show you on here. I got to do something on the insides. I'm not even going to bother showing you the insides because you just look at it and go, don't you got a metal bin to throw that hood in? Well, I don't. This is the hood we're using, so I'm doing stuff like this to make it a peach. It's going to be a peach. Yeah, it's going to be a peach. It'll be all right. It'll be good. It'll be good. So I don't know. Maybe if you pick something up on that, don't be scared of welding. And I tell a lot of people who want to get into this and they want to start doing it is go find yourself some shit. Some old fenders, an old hood. You got to be able to come up with something. Take it home, clean the paint off of it, cut it up, and weld it together. Before you jump onto your 71 Dodge SS Camaro, Grab your Toyota fender and cut that turkey apart and weld that up and practice on it. Practice and practice. When you're happy with it there, you're not going to be able to duplicate it when you want to. It's just the way it goes. But practice and practice, you'll get better at it. And I hope that helped you a little bit. I'm glad that that turned out. Otherwise, I wouldn't make this video because, like I said, if the moon falls out of the sky, I'm not going to film it and show you. So that worked out. I'm glad it did. Hope it helped somebody. Don't be scared. Guess that's it. I don't really know if I should make these videos longer or shorter. I know the majority of this kind of work is so monotonous that you just, you know, you don't want to, I mean, Christ, I could set a camera up and you could watch me for 7 hours block primer, or you could watch me smear Bondo all over this and sand and stuff, but you're not gonna. I mean, I wouldn't, if I didn't have to do it, I wouldn't even be doing it. Never mind watching it, but. So anyways, never mind. I do a little bit of rambling, don't I? Yeah. I guess that's it. Cheers. Cut.